My name is Maria Lovelady, and my book is Waivers of Revolution by Peter Wynne. This book is based on the later 1960s and beginning of 1970s in Chile. He was in Chile at that time doing some research, and that's when he got all the information for this book. He didn't finish he finished this book, but he wasn't able to finish all the stuff he wanted, all the research he wanted to do, because he got arrested by the military during the military coup, and he was arrested, and they questioned him for 3 days, and then they asked him to leave within 24 hours. This book is based on the workers' revolution towards the socialist movement in Chile, which was prior to Salvador Allende's election of 1972. This book is based on the Yarur's factory, which was the first modernized cotton mill in Chile. And it talks about the two revolutions, the below revolution and then above revolution. The below revolution is a revolution that came from the workers' movement, and the above revolution is the one that came from politicians and upper class people that were working for the workers' rights. This book is really readable. It starts with the background of the workers, their conditions on the factory. It gives a pretty good background where the workers came from, how they were working, what benefits they had, which were none pretty much. It gives a background how the factory worked, and how the workers started organizing themselves. It also gives a pretty good political background on Chile. Prior to Allende's election, it gives a pretty good background on who Allende was. So if people haven't read much about Chile or don't know much about Chile, they can easily understand the political context and the social context of Chile at that time. The workers started to organize themselves prior to Allende's election. Allende was the socialist candidate, the presidential candidate, from a coalition of the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, and part of like a middle central part of Chilean political parties. He was a doctor, and he basically represented the workers. Allende had an idea of a revolution that wasn't violent, that was very political, very political correct, and he believed in a long-term change without violence, which was very different from countries like Cuba or Guatemala. He also believed that Chile needed to govern for their people, and that the money and the resources that were from Chile needed to contribute to Chile's economy and not just to other countries. And that's how he got the support of the working class. He believed that workers needed to organize themselves, they needed to have unions. There was also a big rebellion against the teller system, which Allende supported, and most of it was the questions about salary and retirement, which workers had no benefits at all, and he demanded that if he was elected president, that mills will have to give benefits to the workers and allow unions. He promised to solve the union questions. He promised to eliminate the teller system, and also promised to make sure that there was job security for the Chilean workers. Chile was affected by the post-war era, just like all the other countries, with dependency and stagflation, economic inequality, social inequality, concentration of wealth, persistence of poverty, and all the economic wealth was concentrated on a few people that control all the meals and the natural resources. And those were the reasons why the worker class suffered in Chile, and that's the reason why Allende got elected. Allende's campaign was designed to bring social equality to Chile without violence and bringing rights to the workers. Both revolutions, the above revolution and the below revolution, were supposed to complement each other, and at the beginning they did, but later on they work against each other because the below revolution wanted a more radical and fast solution, and a little bit more violent solution, while the above revolution wanted a more long-term fix and definitely a non-violent fix. The workers' revolution, which was the below revolution, at the beginning the workers thought that the revolution from below was only helping Allende's revolution from above, and that Allende was their only chance to have any type of support, because any of the other candidates were not going to allow any type of social revolution. The revolution from above, which it was the higher class and politicians who worked towards the workers' right, they believed that Chileans needed to have an opinion and control over the resources, and therefore they will care about their workers and their people, which if people from other countries will have control of our resources and our meals, then they really didn't have to care about our workers, and that needed to change. The workers' ultimate goal was to have total control of the meal, and Allende was forced at one point to give the workers total control of the meal, which was against his original plan. And this was an example of the conflict of the revolution from above and below, because Allende was always forced to be on demand of the workers. And these also create a conflict between social classes, like the middle class, which Allende ended up losing their support because he had to do things for the workers, like increase the agrarian reform, which he didn't want to do at the moment. Allende faced growing economic dislocation. The upper classes sabotaged the economy to create chaos on the lower classes. Like, for example, they hide the food and all kinds of products that people needed on a daily basis to create chaos and blame it on the government, which made the lower class people even more mad and wanted to be more radical instead of giving them more peace. So there was a constant conflict of classes. The relation of Allende with the workers was very special. From the beginning, Allende represented the workers. They saw Allende as not as like a higher figure, but more as a friend that was there for them. And they saw him too as their only shot to have any type of change or any type of reform. Both groups, the below revolution and the upper revolution, agreed that Chile needed social change, and but they disagree on the way to do things. All these issues and the disagreement on doing things between the workers and the government led to a military coup in 1973, which Allende killed himself in the presidential palace. The military took the cotton mill back. All the leaders of the unions were killed or tortured or disappeared. There's an estimate of 10,000 people that died during the military coup. Many of them were from the working class. I like this book mainly because it shows the workers' conditions prior to the revolution. I think there's a big misunderstanding on why countries wanted a revolution. It wasn't just a communist influence. There was a big need for social change. And this book does a really good job on that. That shows the need of the workers and how the workers were abused by the system and by the upper classes. It gives a more understanding of the social context of the time and the political context of the time too. I also like how it talks about Allende and explain why Allende was democratically elected, and it gives credit to, and it gives enough credit to the workers, Allende himself, and for the things that happened, but also it's really good on explaining the problems that were inside the left side, which was the workers and the government at the time.